Have you ever noticed something small that just felt really off or wrong? Like you walk into a room and there's a picture frame turned over, or a door unlocked that you know you locked. This is Static Hour, a late night broadcast of strange and unsettling stories from the darkest corners of the internet. I'm Bree, and we are officially on the air. Tonight's stories all share one thing in common. Someone notices some small, tiny detail, a missing object, a strange sound, a person acting just slightly off, and by the time they realize what's happening, it's already too late. So tonight our first story comes from user That One Clone Trooper. This is the subreddit Creepy Encounters, and the original post is called, "For months I was confused why I kept finding long hairs in my house. Then I saw my neighbor leaving my house." This is a wild ride, and I hate it so much. All right, let's dive in. I'm a man in my 20s that lives alone on the very top floor of an apartment block. I've had short hair for the last 10 years of my life. The longest hair on my head is maybe an inch long, if that even. However, across my house, I kept finding long hairs on the floor. Like long brunette hairs, at least 5 or 6 inches, sometimes longer. And they would be everywhere. Bathroom floor, in the shower, in my cupboard, in my kitchen, on old clothes, living room floor, sofa, etc. I've been single since November and clean often enough that I'm certain it was not my ex-girlfriend's hair. Plus, the color doesn't match anyway. She had solid black hair, and these are more of a light brunette. Plus, finding them in the places like the shower, where running water is hitting all the sides 5 times a week. Anyway, I waved it off as, well, I work with a lot of people and I use the gym and bus, so sometimes naturally hairs will get on my clothes and just stick to them. Well, one day, this past April, I finished my early morning gym session and got the call that I didn't have to go into work that day. So naturally, I started to walk home, all happy that I had the day to myself. I'm on the 5th floor, the uppermost floor, of the building, and the apartment is in such a way that there is only one apartment per floor. I start to hustle up the stairs and don't use the elevator since I'm sweaty from the gym anyway. Just as I whip a right to go up to the last set of stairs from the 4th floor to the 5th floor, I see my neighbor's, on the 3rd floor, daughter coming down the stairs. We lock eyes. We've never spoken before, mostly because we never had a reason to, but also because out of respect, I didn't want to make her uncomfortable since she's 19 to 21-ish and I'm slightly older. The most interaction we've had is that I've spoken to her mother and father before when bumping into each other on the stairs. I gave a confused, "Hello?" At this point, I'm thinking that maybe she went to knock on my door to ask for something. A cup of sugar, maybe? I don't know. I was expecting her to reply with something like, "Oh, hi, do you have any XYZ?" Nope. She gave a silent, "Hey," and brushed right past me. And only then, when the smell of my own shampoo hit me, did I notice that her hair was wet. Like, fresh out of the shower a minute ago wet. Now, I'm not saying that she showered in my house, or that I have a stalker that's been living in my house while I've been at work. She very easily could have just been there to ask me for something, and most generic brand shampoos smell the same. But don't the pieces fit all too well together? Her hair color matches the hair I would find around my apartment. And like I said before, they were everywhere, in my bed to in my sock drawers. And if it's a case of me having a stalker, how did she know I came home early enough to bolt out the shower in time? Our apartment doesn't have cameras. It's an older building from before the 2000s. And why would she be stalking me? For how long has she been doing this? We've never dated, never had a proper conversation. I have maybe seen her 20 times in the past 2 years, given that I work and she presumably studies or works too. As all these thoughts are buzzing through my head, and I'm standing outside my door for a solid 2 minutes, grappling with what just happened, I go to turn the key in my door, and it opens without me having to unlock it. And I know for a fact that I always double lock my door. It's a type of lock with a lock near waist level and then a second more secure lock with a different key above shoulder level. I drop my bag, throw off my shoes, and run to the shower. And yep, it's wet. I hadn't showered since yesterday morning. I'm a confrontational person, not that I go looking for fights, but I'll definitely pursue an answer if something is bugging me. So back down the stairs to the 3rd floor I went, knocking on the door of my apparent stalker and her family. She opens the door, but with the chain still on. I see half of her face from behind the door. Yes, can I help you? Were you at my door or inside? I don't want to make this a police thing now, but you came down the stairs and I know you were inside my apartment. I just had to get something. It won't happen again. Okay, bye. See you. Door closed. What? I just had to, I love how she, says that and then thinks that that is going to be a good excuse. Oh, okay, she just broke into my apartment to get something, you guys. It's totally fine. No. This happened last month. I've been cleaning my house every weekend closely now and got the locks changed and put a motion sensor camera above my door. It only films and triggers on the steps coming up to my door, so the 4th apartment still had their privacy. So far, so good. I don't think she's been inside since, but looking back, I think she's been living in or going in whenever to my apartment since January, because that's my earliest memory of finding hairs. She never took anything of value like my laptop or the few watches I have. Seemingly, she just showered and ate some of my food and laid in my bed. I do now always take the elevator to avoid the 3rd floor like the plague. Edit. I'm not really worried about my safety because 1, I'm 200 pounds and do a lot of fighting and training, and 2, the new camera has never gone off since I installed it, other than myself triggering it when I get home. Finally, 3, I told the old retired husband and wife on the 4th floor that I suspected a robber was trying to break into my apartment last month. I didn't want to start spreading rumors and gossip, and asked them to keep an ear out when I'm at work. I feel fine and safe, just creeped out. Like my personal space has been violated. Edit 2. Someone DM'd me to check my coat and bags for air tags as to how maybe she knew I was coming home earlier that day. I don't have a lot of stuff, so I think I would have 100% found it by now, given how often I clean, but I'll do another sweep of my stuff. Okay, so that's where the original post ended, and this was last month. But since then, there have been some extra updates. There's a lot of comments about people just saying you really need to tell the parents what's going on, blah, blah, blah. Inform the landlord, just to kind of let her know, what's happening and just so the parents can address it. He says, I'm going to file a police report with the friend just so it's on record should anything happen, and talk with the parents again with the friend so no one misunderstands anything, and there's witnesses all around. So I guess he did talk to the parents at some point. Because I remember reading that he said the parents, the mom does piano lessons or some kind of tutoring from home, and so the girl just ended up wanting to get out of her house, but it's so creepy. And then I think he said she did end up putting an air tag in something or on his car or something. I did I posted it to update me, so we'll see. I'll try to find it and then come back to it. Okay, jumping back into the next story tonight, and I had to go take my contacts out, so I apologize that I'm not wearing glasses, but here we are. So, going into this next story, the user is Haunting Minute 5103. The subreddit is from horror stories, and it's called The Apartment I Moved Into Has No Mirrors. I found out why. When I signed the lease, I didn't notice anything strange. Small studio, old building, downtown, seemed fine. No red flags. A little dusty, sure, a faint smell that I couldn't place like burnt hair, but the price was so low I barely blinked. I signed the same day. It wasn't until I started unpacking that I realized some things were weird. There were no mirrors. None. Not even in the bathroom. Not on the closet doors. Not in the kitchen where those ugly reflective backsplashes usually are. At first, I figured the last tenant just didn't like them. But then I noticed the walls where they should have been were patched up, like someone had torn mirrors out and then filled in the gaps. Sloppy work too. Uneven plaster, knife scratches, the kind of job you do when you're in a hurry or when you're scared. That night, I hung up a small mirror I brought from my last place. Just a round one, no frame. I stuck it above the bathroom sink and went to bed. At 3:22 a.m., I woke up. Not suddenly, just not to a noise. I just felt awake. My eyes opened and my body refused to move. Sleep paralysis, I thought. But then I heard breathing. Not mine. Low, raspy, like someone with fluid in their lungs, coming from the bathroom. I could see the doorway from my bed. Nothing moved, but the breathing didn't stop. And then a faint scraping, like fingernails on glass. The next morning, the mirror was gone, just gone. Not shattered, not fallen, just missing. I checked the floor, the trash, even the hallway, and nothing. I called the landlord and asked if maintenance had been in. He left. Bathroom mirror, he said. Yeah, you don't want that. Best to leave the walls blank. Trust me. Then he hung up. That night, I heard something whisper my name. Not from the doorway this time. From inside the bathroom. I walked in with the flashlight. Nothing there. But I swear, the wall where the mirror had been looked wetter than it should have, like someone had breathed on it. I left the lights on after that, slept with the TV playing static. It didn't help. Every night around 3 a.m. I'd wake up, and every time I would hear it, a low chuckle, like someone laughing underwater, the scrape of a palm sliding across glass. And once, just once, I looked toward the bathroom and saw a flash of reflection. Not mine, just eyes. Too high on the wall, too wide, watching. I tried hanging another mirror. This time I taped it to the inside of a cabinet. Kept it shut during the day. Figured if I controlled it, I could stop whatever this was. But when I opened the cabinet that night, there was someone in it. Not behind the cabinet. In the mirror. It looked like me at first, but its mouth didn't move when mine did. Its arms stayed still while I trembled, and then it smiled. Not a normal smile, too. It had too many teeth, cracked lips, like its face was stretching to fit. I slammed the cabinet shut and heard a shriek behind the wall, like it was mad that I caught it. I smashed the mirror the next morning, swept it up, and threw it down the chute. Later that day, I saw someone watching me from across the street. Top floor, dirty window, no lights on. They stood completely still for over an hour. And when I looked again that night, they were holding up a mirror to the glass, facing my apartment. I moved out the next morning. Didn't even ask for my deposit. I just left. The landlord didn't look surprised. He just said, "Well, you lasted longer than most." I've been crashing on a friend's couch since. But last night, the bathroom mirror in his place fogged up while I was brushing my teeth. And written in the condensation, in shaky, dripping letters, said, "Let me finish watching you." I hate it. I hate it so much. No, sir. That was a good one. That one freaks me out because it's just like such a simple little thing, you know? Like how we started this episode where it's just you notice something off and you can't quite figure out what it is. And then when you do figure it out, it's way too late. So I hate that so much. The next story that I have is from user Ordinary Eye 2710. It's from the subreddit Horror Stories, and it's called "I Edit Emergency Calls for the county." And just a note, this user also writes stories on Patreon if anyone wants bonus stories that you can't find anywhere else. So if you like their writing style, then definitely go check them out. Just so you know, for like a little trigger warning, this story is almost 100% fiction, but it does have some graphic images about death and emergency situations. So if that's not something that you feel like you can listen to, then skip on to the next story. I worked for the county, not as a dispatcher, but as one of the people who cleaned up recordings afterward. Training material, legal review, that kind of thing. Most calls never made it past the first pass. They were boring or redundant or too chaotic to be useful. Others stayed with me longer than they should have. You learn to compartmentalize. You have to. But this one slipped through. The call came in at 2:17 a.m. on a Wednesday. Residential, no address anomaly, no drop signal. The dispatcher's voice was calm, professional, and exactly how it should be. The caller was a woman, mid-30s, maybe older, hard to tell. Her voice was steady in a way that didn't really match what she was saying. "There's someone in my house," she said. The dispatcher followed protocol, asked for her address, confirmed it, and asked if she was in immediate danger. I don't think so," the woman said. "He's just standing there." "Standing where?" "In the hallway, outside my bedroom." The dispatcher asked if she could leave the room. "No." "Why not?" "Because he told me not to." There it was, the first thing that made me pause the audio. The dispatcher handled it well, asked for a description: male, average height, dark clothes, no visible weapon, not moving, just standing. Police were dispatched. ETA was 7 minutes. The dispatcher told the woman to stay on the line. Lock the door if possible. "I already did," the woman said. "He unlocked it." That earned a note in the margin. Possible hallucination, possible domestic situation, stress response. The dispatcher asked if the woman knew the man. "I don't think so," she said. Then after a beat, "But he knows me." "How?" "He's using my name?" The dispatcher asked her to whisper if she needed to. The woman said, "He says it doesn't matter." That was when the call quality changed. Not static, not interference, just a subtle flattening of the sound, like the room had absorbed it. I remember leaning back in my chair when I first heard that part, rolling my shoulders, telling myself not to anthropomorphize audio. I don't know how to say that word. The dispatcher asked the woman to describe what the man was doing now. "He tilted his head," she said, "like he's listening to you." The dispatcher paused. You could hear it, half a second too long. "Ma'am, is he speaking to you right now?" "No," the woman said. "But he's smiling." The dispatcher told her to keep her eyes on the door. "I don't have to," the woman said. "I can see his shadow under it." The dispatcher asked if there was any light on in the hallway. "No." Then how could she see the shadow? Another pause. "He's brighter than the dark," the woman said. That was where the training value dropped off. That line got the call flagged for psychological distress. I should have trimmed it there. I didn't. The dispatcher redirected, asked the woman to describe her surroundings, grounding techniques, breathe, name objects in the room. The woman complied. Bed, dresser, lamp, phone. Then she stopped. "What is it?" the dispatcher asked. "He's closer," the woman said. "I didn't hear him move." The dispatcher told her that officers were en route. "I know," the woman said. "He said they won't see him." The dispatcher asked her to clarify. "He said he's not here the way they're here." The dispatcher asked the woman to keep talking. "I don't think I'm supposed to," she said. "He asked why you're lying to me." The dispatcher assured her that no one was lying. The woman laughed, a short sound, almost embarrassed. He says you're very good at it," she said. At 2:23 a.m., the audio picked up a second voice. It was faint, not coming through the phone, but coming through the room. I replayed the section dozens of times, checked waveforms, compared channels. It was there, a man's voice, low and unhurried. "That's not true," it said. The dispatcher reacted immediately, asked who else was in the room. The woman didn't answer again. Instead, the man spoke again, clearer this time. "You shouldn't have told her to lock the door." The dispatcher called for backup. Her voice stayed level, but it tightened. "Ma'am, if you can hear me, please respond." "She can hear you," the man said. "She just doesn't know which one of us to answer." The woman started crying then, quietly, like she was trying not to be rude. "I just don't want to make him mad," she said. The dispatcher asked who he was. "I asked her not to explain me," the man said. "It never goes very well." The dispatcher told the woman to leave the phone on and exit through the window if possible. There was a sound then. Fabric shifting, footsteps, not hurried. "No," the man said, not raised, not threatening, just firm. "We're almost done." The dispatcher said officers were on the street. "I know," the man said. "I can hear them thinking." The woman made a small noise like surprise. "He's right," she said. "They're scared." The dispatcher asked the woman to focus on her voice. "Which one?" the woman asked. That was the last thing that she said. The call ended at 2:26 a.m. Abrupt disconnect. No struggle sounds, no scream, just silence. The police report came in later that morning. Officers arrived to find the house empty. Front door unlocked, bedroom undisturbed, phone on the bed, screen cracked from the inside. No signs of forced entry, no signs of exit. The woman had no history of mental illness, no domestic partner, no neighbors reported seeing anyone leave. The case was marked unresolved. I edited the call down to 6 minutes, removed the second voice, cut the stranger references, left it as a textbook example of a perceived intruder with dissociative features. That is what I told myself. 2 months later, I got a call from my supervisor, asked if I had worked on file 17-0426. I said yes. She asked why my name was spoken on the recording. I didn't understand. She played it for me, a version I had never heard. Same call, same timestamps, same voices, except this time, when the man spoke for the first time, he said my name. Not shouted, not emphasized, like it was obvious. "That's not true, Isha," he said. I told my supervisor it must have been contamination, audio bleed, suggestibility. She nodded. She looked tired. She asked me to listen to one more thing. A new call taken that morning. Different dispatcher, different address. A man on the line this time. "There's someone in my house," he said. The dispatcher asked for his name. He gave it. Then he said, "He's telling me you already know that part." I kind of love that story. Just because it's just spooky and I don't know, it's just a good spooky story, you know? And I love the kind of stories that really just kind of leave it on a little cliffhanger kind of thing where you can just kind of decide what you think the ending really is because they've kind of left it up to interpretation. So I think it was a really, really great story. The next story, this one is from user Vernie X Vision, and the subreddit is horror stories. The post is called, "I'm a night shift security guard for a tunnel that does not appear on any map. I took the job because it paid $40 an hour, and all I had to do was sit in a booth and watch a monitor. No experience required. The only catch? I had to work the 10 p.m. to 4 a.m. shift at Site 9, a service tunnel cut into the side of a mountain in the middle of nowhere. On my first night, my supervisor, a guy named Miller, who looked like he hadn't slept since the 90s, handed me a laminated sheet of paper. 'Don't lose this,' he said, 'and don't get creative. If the rules say sit, you sit.' I laughed, thinking he was just an old school hardhead. Then I read the rules. Rule number 1. Keep the gate closed. No vehicles are authorized to enter or exit between 11 p.m. and 3:30 a.m. If a car approaches, do not speak to the driver. Turn off your booth lights and look at the floor until they leave. Number 2. Ignore the scraping. The tunnel is concrete. Concrete doesn't breathe. If you hear rhythmic scraping from the tunnel vent, turn up the radio. Okay. Number 3. The 2 a.m. check. At exactly 2 a.m., a man in a yellow high visibility vest will walk out of the tunnel. He will ask you for a cigarette. Give him one. Do not look at his hands. He doesn't have fingers. And number 4, the mirror rule. If you see your own reflection in the booth window and it's smiling while you are not, leave the booth immediately and stand in the rain. It doesn't like the rain. I would have just looked at that and you know what? Thank you so much for this opportunity, but I'm going to leave now. But this person did not, and that is cool too. I sat there for the first few hours listening to the wind. At 11:15 p.m., a black SUV pulled up to the gate. I almost opened my mouth to ask for ID, but I remembered rule number 1. I killed the lights and stared at my boots. The driver started honking. Then the honking turned into a scream, a loud mechanical screeching that sounded like metal being torn apart. It lasted for 10 minutes. When I finally looked up, the SUV was gone. There were no tire tracks in the dirt. At 1:30 a.m., the scraping started. Scritch, scritch, scritch. It was coming from the air vent right above my head. It sounded like someone was trying to sharpen their fingernails on the inside of the metal grate. No, thank you. No. I turned my radio to a static-filled rock station and cranked it until my ears hurt. Then came 2 a.m. The man in the yellow vest walked out of the darkness of the tunnel. He moved with a strange, jerky gait, like a puppet on strings. He tapped on the glass. I reached into my pocket, pulled out a Marlboro, and slid it through the tray at the bottom. "Got a light?" he rasped. I kept my eyes locked on his chin. As he reached for the cigarette, I saw his hands out of the corner of my eyes. They weren't hands. They were long, pale stalks of bone sharpened to fine points. That's what the scraping was. "Thanks," he said, and turned back into the tunnel. I was shaking, but I figured I was almost done. Only 2 hours left. I leaned back and sighed, looking at the window. The reflection of the booth was clear in the dark glass. I saw the desk, the radio, and myself. My reflection was leaning forward. It was grinning so wide that the corners of its mouth reached its ears. It raised a hand with 5 normal fingers and began to slowly unlock the booth door from the inside. I did not think. I just bolted. I threw the door open and ran outside into the freezing downpour. I stood there drenched to the bone, staring into the booth. My reflection was still inside, standing where I had been, staring at me through the glass with that horrific smile. It looked disappointed. I stayed in the rain until 4 a.m. when Miller showed up. He didn't ask why I was wet. He just looked at the booth and then at me. "Good job," he muttered. "Most people don't make it past the cigarette guy." I quit that morning. Smart. I didn't even wait for my paycheck. But now, every time I look in a mirror, my reflection is just a second too slow to follow my movements. And sometimes, when it's quiet at night, I hear a faint scritch, scritch coming from the vents in my apartment. I think I brought something back with me. Or maybe the reflection that left the booth wasn't me at all. That one is so spooky. So spooky. So spooky. But so good. Yeah, I would have quit immediately before even sitting my little booty down. And then what's crazy is he was like, "Okay, well, I'm just gonna stick it out." But then he didn't even get paid for it. He didn't take his paycheck. If you're gonna stick with it, get paid, dude. We have 2 more stories tonight. So this one is from user proofpoem3707, and the subreddit is horror stories. And Just so you know, the story uses skinwalker folklore loosely in like a horror fiction sense. So it is a made-up story, but the premise is, it's called I Think My Husband is a Skinwalker. Just a heads up, because I know that that can be very triggering for some people. I think my husband is a skinwalker, and here's the horrifying reason why. For clarification, my husband and I have been married for a while. We are high school sweethearts and know each other left, right, and center. Whether it comes to our latte orders, when we're having a bad day, to literal thoughts. My husband Henry is very quiet and charismatic man. He practically lives the motto, if you have nothing intelligent to say, then say nothing at all. His father used to continuously tell him that while growing up, and he learned to just be quiet and listen and observe. Even with me, he's very quiet. I don't mind it, to be frank. I myself was the nerd type of girl in school, straight A's and shy, never talking to anyone, until I met Henry. He understood me when I didn't even need to use words. Our love language is acts of service without even having to ask. Usually our days go like this. He goes to work. While he's at work, I clean the house, buy the groceries, and walk our dog B, a mini labradoodle, to the park near our block. Come home, and I'll start on supper. He usually comes home around 4-ish. He greets me in the kitchen silently with a kiss. I hug him and continue, and we eat in quiet. It's quite nice, actually. That's what frightened me the other night. When I finished walking the dog and started on our supper, Henry walked in the house. Louder than usual. His footsteps seemed rush and heavier than usual. He's about 6 foot and is more lean. He typically walks more softly, like he's trying to be silent. But today he seemingly came stomping into the house with heavy footsteps. I poked my head around the corner of the kitchen as he was walking up the stairs, almost like he was in pain, yet he wasn't wincing. "Hello, darling, how was your day?" he said, smiling, a huge grin, not how he normally would. I gave him a bit of a frown because he was acting strange, like he was relearning to speak to me, like he was having trouble acting normal. "Hello," I said, turning back to the kitchen, thinking he was acting strange, but who knows. He walked up about 4 big steps away from me and stood there, still in a suit and tie, briefcase in hand, smiling that eerie smile that was not my Henry smile. I was trying to focus on dinner. I was plating and trying not to look at him, showing his physical signs that I was uncomfortable with, which he usually would have picked up on, but for some reason he just wasn't this time. "Go hush up, dear. You can't be wearing your work clothes at dinner," I said quietly. "Yes, darling," he smiled, wider somehow, like his face was stretching in inhuman ways. That is not my husband. Henry and I may not speak much, but we did set boundaries when we were on a few dates. He told me he was uncomfortable with pet names, that they just sounded dumb. He told me I could call him whatever, but not to call him dear. His mother, now deceased, used to be absolutely terrible to him when he was younger, which I'm not going to go into detail, but if you're thinking about it, it most likely happened. He told me about how it hurt so much, salt in the wound, opening it back up when he heard that phrase, back in that big brown house where everybody was drunk and yelling. I'd called him dear to see if he would have a slight reaction, and he didn't move a muscle. That's not my husband. That is not my Henry. I started to sweat, wondering what it could mean. I was going to test it once more while we were eating to see if it really was. I didn't know what I was going to do, because if I were going to call the cops, what would I say? Someone who looks just like my husband is trying to impersonate him? No, that's silly. I set the table up, shaking a bit, knowing something was terribly wrong. He wasn't making any sense. "Dear, are you coming? Dinner's ready," I said, trying my best to calm myself down. "Yes, darling, I'm coming," he replied, instantly walking into the room as if he were lurking in the shadows. We both sat down and started picking away at our plates, when I smiled. "Henry, I was thinking we could go visit your mother. It's been a while." "Oh, that sounds wonderful. Anytime soon?" I swallowed hard. "She died last spring." "Yes, I was thinking next week," I smiled, keeping my act together. "Amazing, thank you," he said, copying the warm smile my husband once used to give me, but this one didn't reach his eyes. After I cleaned up supper and Henry was told to get into the shower, I started digging through his side drawer. I found a leather notebook and quickly opened it, reading. It was almost like a diary. The latest entry read, "I don't know if I will make it back home after this time. Going to this forest is too risky. I need to get everything sorted out on my parents' land before they get to us, before it mimics me or worse, hurts my beloved." My stomach dropped to my feet and my legs started to become jello. I was right. This is not my husband. As soon as my mind snapped back to reality, the shower stopped and I heard whatever it was mimicking my husband thrash around the bathroom. I quickly locked the door to our bedroom and have been here for an hour and a half now. It's been begging me and trying different voices, crying, sobbing, begging, and screaming. I don't know how much longer I can last. Please, someone, if you're reading this, please come and save me before it's too late. Isn't that one a fun one? These stories tonight are just like, they're so spooky, but they're just like a good spooky. Like, just one that I don't know. Like, it's just such a good spooky feeling, you know? And our last story tonight is a short one, but that is okay because even the short ones are still really good. This user is DrySpite1417. It's from the subreddit Ghost Stories, and it's called My Son Scares Me. Hey everyone. So yeah, my child scares me. There have been a few incidents, but I will share the very first with you. About 2 to 3 years ago, my son, who was 4 at the time, was lying in my bed with me, and we were trying to fall asleep. He was doing the usual kid thing with their fighting to go to sleep, rolling around, speaking gibberish, playing with his hands. Then all of a sudden he stops, and I feel him sit up in the bed. I'm pretending to be asleep, so I just stay still and quiet. Then I hear him having a conversation, but I can only hear his side. "What did you say?" "What?" "I'm trying to go to bed." "You go get it. It's downstairs that way." "No, I'm trying to sleep. You go downstairs." "What?" "Ugh, I can't hear you. Come here." And that's when I jumped out of the bed and flipped the bedroom light on because he is not about to invite whatever this thing is into bed with us. Sobbing, I asked him, "Buddy, who are you talking to?" And he points to the corner of the room and says, "Over there." And I said, "Baby, I can't see who it is. You need to tell me who it is. Is it a boy? Is it a girl?" The child looked at me and says, "Monster." I had a moment where panic rushed through me. But growing up, I had many paranormal experiences myself. So I sat with him and asked him, "Do you want the monster to leave you alone?" And he said, "Yeah." So I had him repeat after me, and I told the monster to go away and that he was not welcome to be in our home. My son decided to end it with, "Yeah, leave me alone." 2 minutes later, my son was sound asleep. I, however, was up for another few hours after that. And this was the beginning of my child seeing absolutely creepy stuff. If you want to know more, let me know. So our son totally did this kind of thing, probably at around the same age. He literally he would go to bed every night and then he would cry. He would never leave his room. We had moved him from like his crib to a toddler bed. And I guess he just didn't realize that you can actually get out of the bed. So he would sit up and sit in bed and just scream and cry for us to come here. And I would rush into his room, see what was going on. And he would point into the same corner every single time and say that he was terrified and so scared of the Christmas lady. And I just could not handle that. It was a lot. So we would always say, like, we'd always tell the Christmas lady, "Go away, you're not real." And we would just kind of say that over and over and over again every single night that it happened. And eventually it just kind of stopped happening. But it was not fun. It was just spooky. Okay, and I'm reading through the comments and I'm just trying to see if there's like other stories that they've posted in the thread. Not really. It's just like mostly people saying, "Yeah, I had that one. Like, I had similar things happen to me," and things like that. Someone else said, "My husband is very sensitive as well. When he was 2, he would always make me stay in bed with him until he fell asleep. Being a sensitive myself, I eventually felt that there was a negative spirit in there. I ordered it out of the house and to leave my son alone. My son went to sleep by himself after that. Unfortunately, he did develop insomnia at 11 and was haunted by the man in the hat. He was never scared and said that the man would occasionally check in on me, but continued to see him in his teens. This continued despite our attempts to rid the man from our house. Yes, he followed us to different houses. My son, now in his 20s, still has insomnia but doesn't see the hat man that I know of. I've seen stuff since childhood, so there's no fear there. The hat man is a very common kind of story and legend for people, especially children that would see things. So maybe we can do a story on that, or like read people's experiences with the hat man, because that is a spooky one as well. All right, you guys, that's where we're going to end it tonight. If you have a story that you want shared with the world, please send it in. I am dying to read them. And we have people that are starting to send us stories, and I cannot wait to read them on here. You can email us at statichourpodcast@gmail.com or join our Discord and submit it there. The link is in all of our bios. I will say that I'm really bad at Discord, so I would prefer an email, but you do whatever you need to do. If you'd like to catch the next broadcast, make sure that you're following or subscribed. And if you just want more spooky and more fun stories to listen to, please go check out our Patreon. We are putting up some great stuff there. There's a few stories on there already, and we just finished recording an awesome bonus episode tonight that I cannot wait for that one to publish. So go check us out on Patreon, and I just appreciate you guys so much for all that you do and listen and tell your friends. We just love it. Once again, I'm Bree, and you've been listening to The Static Hour. We are going off the air. Good night. And just like that, we're going off the air. If you want to catch the next broadcast, make sure you're following and subscribed. There's always more waiting to come through. I'm Bree, and I'll see you next time on The Static Hour. Good night.